Focus first.
He's
Wait, hold on.
Is the light too bright? You want me to dim the light a little bit,
No,
Kerry?
you're fine.
Are you sure?
Well, maybe.
Dim
What
this
do you
light a
think,
little
Jen?
bit? You can dim it. I think the dimmer's over here. The dimmer's over here on this wall.
That's good. All right, we're ready.
You on?
Yeah.
Okay, it is March 9th, 2009, and this is Kathy Mullins, and we're sitting here in my dining room interviewing today John Conway. And we are actually celebrating the passing of Elizabeth Jean France into heaven with the Lord today, and we are going to be attending her funeral. So John has come from Waseca, and I thought it would be a good time to ask him a few questions and get him on camera. So John, we're going to start by asking you to introduce yourself, because there are many people that may not know you, and many people in the future and grandchildren in the future, and we'd like to have them know who you are. So tell us who you are.
Okay. My name is John Conway. John Joseph Patrick Conway. I'm the eighth one of my parents' family. I'm the baby of the family. My mother was Mary Alice Costello, and my father was John Arthur Conway. He was 48 when I was born, and Mom was 45. I was what they call a change of life baby. The rest of the family used to say they're always a little funny, but I straightened them out. So as I grew up on the farm, the house that we lived in was built the year I was born. And so I'm very familiar with that. It ended up in my sister Mary's possession, and Mary is my older sister. Anyway, she lived there and retired there and died there. All my family now, my brother Bill, who everybody knows down here, and he had an older sister, Anastasia, and she had two children, and one of her daughters is at the funeral, Dorothy French, her name is. I always thought that was funny. It was Jean France and Dorothy French. Anyhow, when Bill got married to Rita Donovan, I don't think I was around, because they're that much older than I am. Their oldest daughter, Dolores, who is the grandmother down here, she's one day older than I am.
Wow.
Her mom was having a hard time because this was her first pregnancy, and we lived across the road. And my mother, she was pregnant with me, and she was sort of stout, and she wore that old farm apron all the time, and she was always over there helping Rita get through all of this time, helped her get ready to go to the hospital that day to give birth to Dolores. During the night, they brought Mom in, put her in the same room with Rita, took away the divider in between, and Rita says, "What are you doing here?" She didn't have no idea. So I was an uncle a day before I was born. You can think of the responsibilities that's been piled on me at early.
Yeah, poor John.
Dolores and I was in the same grade, but we didn't go to the same school till she was a freshman. She always went to, Dolores, Jean, and Bob and Joan always went to a country school until their mom died, and then they came and lived with us. The rest of my brothers and sisters, there's Anastasia, her first one, William, John. His name is really John William, but they call him Billy. So, Pa was pretty proud of his name. He had two Johns in his family. Anyhow, and then there was Lucille. Lucille grew up a very pretty lady. She died when she was 53 years old. She was a school teacher for years. Had two daughters, Mary Lou O'Brien, Sally, S-A-H-L-I now, and then Audrey-Ann Murphy. She lives down in Alabama now. Mary Lou lives in Mankato. Then there was my brother Ralph. He was really kind of my hero in my life, because he was about 10 years older than I was, and he was always good to me and whatnot. So when he left and went to Arizona, When he was 24, he left, and I felt so bad. Because he, like I said, and then when I got out of the service, years later, well, I went right down there and worked with him, and he had a little country store out there, out south of Phoenix and whatnot. And I ended up driving a meatpacking truck with him. A guy by the name of Martin DeMars. Everybody used to know him as St. Clair. I don't know how he ended up there. And so Dad was not feeling good, and Dad was, you know, by this time he's in his 70s, and he called up Ralph and said, "Send Johnny home, I need some help around here." So I had to go back home. I didn't really want to. If that didn't happen, I probably would have ended up in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
So I took the airplane, and that one of my first flights in an airplane, because they didn't have them, otherwise we all ran around on trains and stuff. And we flew back to Rochester, Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
I think we lit about 7 times before we got here, different airports, because you run out of gas, I guess, I don't know.
Wow.
And I got out of the airplane, I don't know why I'm thinking like this, but there was a taxi guy there going to take us uptown, and he says, "Where do you live?" And I says, "Waseca." He said, "Hey, stay on the car, I get rid of the rest of these guys, I'll take you home, I got nothing to do for the next couple hours." So I got this neat taxi ride all the way to Waseca, 60 miles, and put in the yard, and old Pete, the dog I grew up with, he greeted us out there. I come on this night shirt, wanted to know what was going on. So that's got me back to Waseca, where then I met this little German girl. You know, it's changed my whole life. Her name was Verla Schoenrock. I didn't know she was German. I thought it was Verla Shamrock. Anyhow, so she's been with me now 61 years, and I think I'll keep her now.
Okay.
Very good cook.
Wonderful.
My dad, who didn't know what to think about her when I brought her home, after all, he was so Irish and Catholic and whatnot. But here I come home with this little German girl that was a German Lutheran, belonged to the Lutheran Missouri Synod. They don't like Catholics. 61 years ago, that was really a big deal.
Yeah.
Seems to be working. Seems to be working.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, anyway, Dad really liked food. And he used to live in town, and we lived on the farm, and he used to stick around for meals a lot. And he said they could say what they wanted about her, but she's a damn good cook, which was high on his list.
There you go. So you had brothers. Now, how many sisters did you have?
Well, I'd Anastasia, the oldest one, and then Lucille, and then Mary, who ended up on the home farm, and she's the one that had 17 children, lost 3. And then we had a sister, her name was Julia, who I never met or knew, but she died in infancy. And then Helen, Sister Marie, she became a nun. I was the first guy she told that she was wanted to be a nun. Guy took me in her confidence. Anyway, she was afraid Pa wouldn't like it, but Ma was thrilled, and it turned out to be a good deal. She really was one of the kids in my family that I was really close to.
So she was right above you.
She's 6 years older than I am. Yeah. Then I was the baby. And anyhow, so I come from 8, and I have 8. I have Jeffrey, he's the oldest one, and Stephen is this next one. Jeffrey's got 5 children, and Stephen's got 5 children. And then there's Beth. She's my oldest girl, Beth. I was in the hospital waiting on her arrival, and there's a couple of guys that caught me in there, and they said that, you know, they sat with me because they thought I was worried or something. And pretty soon the doctor come in, and he said, "Well, John, guess what? The baby's here. Grade, shape, and whatnot." He says, "Guess what it is?" And I said, "It's a boy." And this guy beside me was so, he said, "A girl, Doc?" He was my barber. So I remember she had a little crooked toe, and I was really worried about that, but I've noticed it lately. It's okay. It turned out all right. You can't hear me.
The red light's not on.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, we're all right.
Okay, go ahead.
So then my fourth son, his name is Patrick. And Patrick was, all my kids are great athletes, really. And Patrick ended up, he was all-state linebacker for 2 years for Gustavus Adolphus College. Now Patrick is suffering from the Lou Gehrig's disease. But he's in there hanging in there, and if anybody whips that, he will.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then the next son is John. John never married. John became a minister for, what's the name of that church? Anyway, and since then he's left that, and he's a big worker for the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Loves sports. Was a great basketball player and football player himself. Could have had a couple of free rides, never took them. I couldn't figure that out, but to go to college. But he went on his own and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 girls, Christine, and Christine is out in Seattle. She's married, has a little boy. Christine was about 12 years old, 13 years old. She had a brain tumor. My whole family come to realize how I got more serious about this whole lifespan of everybody's when Christine was sick. And she was a very active girl. She was, shortstop for the girls' softball team. She's that type of gal. And all of a sudden this come upon her, and they removed this brain tumor from her head. We were all in Rochester, Minnesota, as big as a grapefruit. And but she pulled through it, and she's, like I say, went on to finish her school, and then missed a grade, did a little homeschooling, went back to school, and now she's out in Seattle. She's got her own business out there, and her husband's a mailman in the town of, not Seattle, but right next door to it. Then I have Alice Marie. She looks and acts more like my wife Verla than any of the rest of them. She's married Jeffrey Brown. Jeffrey Brown is half black and half Irish. That the Irish part makes up for the other part. Nice guy. He's a great guy. They have 2 children, and they're both in school. There's Michael and Jeffy.
Mm-hmm.
So they get up at least once a year to visit their daughter-in-law grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
And my last one is Mary. And Mary just got married last year.
I know.
And she married a guy by the name of Logan. So it's Mary Logan down there, and she's very active. She works really hard for some group in housing and whatnot. I don't know if she's got a real estate license or not, I think. But I think she probably has. I don't know.
Okay. Well, yes.
Well, I have some grandchildren. I got like 18 grandchildren, and I have 4 great-grandchildren.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Alrighty. And how old are you?
Oh, come on. How
No.
can I keep track of all these things? Let's see. Emma is my oldest one. That's Steve and Judy's daughter. Steve and Judy's granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
Her mother was Katie, who married Brad Daynert, and so they live in Owatonna, the next town over, and now they have Zachary too.
Mm.
Zachary just loves his grandpa. His grandpa just loves Zachary. I tell you what, you ought to see him. And then Amy, one of Jeff's daughters, she has a little boy by the name of Jackson. And Kelly lives down in Omaha. It's another one of Jeff's daughters, and I can't think of his name right now. Get all these names around and dates and birthdays. You just can't keep track of them. I have to ask Verla, who keeps. Grandmothers are better at that.
Right.
They
right.
are.
And how old are you?
I'm 81, and I'll be 82 in July 20th.
There you-
Dolores would be in July 19th.
Right. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'd like to have you go on with your grandchildren, but
You're cutting me off.
we've got some other questions to cover. We want to know what your earliest memory was. If you think back as a child, what's the earliest memory you have of being a child? Where were you and what happened?
I was in the kitchen at the farmhouse we lived in, and I was underneath the kitchen table, and I bumped my head on the kitchen table, and I thought, oh, I did it again. I couldn't believe that I did that again, if you can believe it or not. When I was that young, too, I got pleurisy. And so I kind of scared everybody around there. I guess they had to take me to the hospital, and they had to put a hose in my side, and this pleurisy is like stuff around the outside of your...
Fluid.
Yeah, fluid outside. So I can't remember all of that part. I remember going to the time, they said they were going to take me in. And I remember they were all concerned about me. Then I remember the rubber sheets on the bed. God, sticky. They were terrible. It was hot in there. And then I used to pump that stuff out of me. I can remember that pretty good.
Wow.
So then I remember being home, and the neighbor kids was over with Helen's buddies, and they're looking in the bedroom window, and I was angry. They thought I was some kind of a freak.
Oh, wow.
So those are my early memories. I remember getting out of bed, and I was walking. Mom was doing the washing the clothes, out in the kitchen with the old wringer washer type and stuff. And my legs were so weak, I fell down. They had to help me go back to bed. And I thought, that's different. That was my earliest memories, I think.
All right. Well, we have a couple questions to ask you, and we want to appreciate your answers since you represent such an Irish part of the family. I'm sure you're going to give us some Irish thinking here. So, if there was a fire in your house and you have 3 minutes to grab 3 things, what 3 things would you grab and why?
I'd probably grab Verla. I need her. She's important in my life.
Okay.
That's right. Then it'd be kind of nice to know where my wallet was, I imagine. Somebody's going to want some money pretty soon. And third, what would I grab? I don't really know what it would be.
Well, you got your money, you got your wife, and what's the third?
Okay. Well, I gave up whiskey a long time ago, so I wouldn't grab that. Just don't come to me, I guess.
Well, you think about maybe we'll
Maybe the pail of water, so I could throw it on the fire.
There you go. Okay, what was your favorite, best Christmas, and what happened?
My favorite what?
Your favorite, best Christmas, and what happened?
Oh, well, I've had a lot of great Christmases. We really believed in that, gosh. I guess one time I was, they had me hiding because Santa Claus was evidently coming early. It's like 9 o'clock in the evening, the night before Christmas, before we went to bed. And I guess they had me upstairs in bed pretending like I was sleeping. So he would, and then this noise was, and Pa went outside, I found out afterwards, and threw a stick of wood on the roof. So that sounded like the sled just hit. I just froze. Then I come down and found these gifts, and so that was probably one I remember most. And since then, I even had my kids do that, and I went out and threw sticks on top of the roof. So. He's here! He's here! There he goes!
Yeah, the tradition lives on, huh?
Yes.
Okay, if you had $1 million, what would you do with it?
I'd give it to Jesus.
Good deal.
Sooner the better. This
Yeah.
stuff is addictive.
Yeah.
The longer you keep it, the more it's harder to give it up.
That's
Something
true.
that gives you a false security.
That's true.
I have some great friends that have this, and they even know better, and they can't give it up.
Wow. Okay, if you could spend 1 hour talking to someone, who would you want to speak to, and what would you say?
Wow. I guess probably my mother.
Your mother. And what would you say?
Well, that I loved her.
Okay. You got an hour.
She's
You're
the
gonna...
most important person ever in my life.
Okay. So you're gonna take an hour and tell her how much you love her, right?
Yeah, okay. She would know that. We wouldn't even have to talk. I had a heart attack about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I